our workshop for homework help. In this time of COVID and school being sometimes in session and sometimes not, sometimes doing virtual learning and sometimes covering material that the parent is not as familiar with, and wanting to be able to help your child through this is sometimes really difficult. And now summer's coming and we don't want them to fall behind. We want them to catch up, but we don't want the battle of sitting at the coffee table or sitting at the kitchen table and trying to get homework done, or it being bedtime and nobody got to play because we had 50 math problems we still had to get done, or trying to get a child to read and they would rather be playing video games. So I want to talk today about the struggle of homework time and how to identify how your child learns best so that we can eliminate some of these struggles and understand better how to move your child forward to the knowledge and the learning they need. Here's some points I want you to remember. Everyone learns differently. All learners should be treated with respect and dignity. Treat your child in the learning like you would treat a colleague in the boardroom. Say kind things, say encouraging things, be polite. Sometimes among the people we love the most, we forget to be polite. We all learn from each other. At least we should all learn from each other. So as the child is learning, the parent can learn also. Nothing sets a better example for your child than while they're sitting and reading quietly, you're sitting and reading quietly. That keeps them from feeling like sitting and reading quietly is punishment while everybody else is doing something fun. They need to learn that reading can be fun. Most children have a sense of language. They know how to speak. They know language patterns and the sounds that things make. They don't always know what to call those things, and so we're building on information that they already have and the abilities they already have. And we'll talk more about that later. For many students, making sense of reading and writing is difficult. When they look at the letters on the page, they have to be taught what those letters represent, the sounds they represent, the exceptions to those rules, and that can be overwhelming sometimes. And so we need to, I like to explain it like this. When you have information and it's going into your brain, it's like you have a bunch of file folders and you want to put that information in the right file so that you can find it again when you need it. Another way I look at it is I have some hooks on the wall and I hang my raincoat here and my winter coat there and a sweater over here. And next I want to hang my umbrella. Well, I'm going to put that where the raincoat is, so I'm going to hang that over there. And my purse that I'm going to use next time is going to hang with my sweater because the weather's warming up and I don't need a coat. Same thing with the information. If you have a reading assignment in history and it's about an event that you didn't already know about, but it's in the same time period as the Revolutionary War and George Washington, then you're going to hang that on the hook in your brain associated with American history. And later when you're doing world history and you've got reading about Genghis Khan, then you're going to hang that over with an earlier time period, Middle Ages or earlier, and you're going to hang it in your China section or something like that. So when you think about where you're going to put this new information, it helps sometimes to visualize where that information is going to go so that next time you need it, you can pull it out. And based on the kind of learning style that your child has, there's different things that work better. It's our job as the tutor, whether a parent or a teacher, to help our students make sense of what they're reading and what they're writing. Prior knowledge, what a student already knows. All students have a wide range of knowledge through a variety of experiences. They know about family, they know about their school, they know about sports, and 1,000 other things. All students bring a wealth of experience to every learning situation. All students. Even if your child has a learning disability, they have a wealth of information that they bring with them to a learning situation. It's our job as the teacher, the student, the grandparent, the parent, the caregiver, whoever you are, to help the student relate to what they already know and what they still need to learn. That helps them hang the right information on the right hook. Some other things to consider. Goals. What is the goal for this activity? Is it to learn something new? Is it to get ready for a test? Is it to get the homework done so you can get the teeth brushed and get to bed? Wherever possible, give the student a sense of control. You don't say, do you want to do your homework? Because no, they don't. But you say, should we do math first or work on our spelling? That gives them a sense that they had some input into what's going on. Give choices wherever possible. Make the lessons relevant. You know your child better than anybody else. What are their personal interests? And find a way to make what they're doing have meaning for them based on things that you know they're already interested in. Another thing is time. Give balance. 4 hours sitting at the kitchen table after dinner is not the right amount of time. There need to be breaks. Usually after 20 minutes of concentrated work on something, everybody needs a little break. A 5-minute break. Go out and shoot some baskets. Or go in the kitchen and have a healthy snack. Or maybe before you get the reading, you've done the spelling, go brush your teeth and get your pajamas on. Then come back and we'll read. Also, be clear and ask questions. Avoid too many commands. There are times with children you have to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. But where possible, ask questions and be very clear. Okay, we're going to work on this for 10 minutes, and I want to see how much can you do in 10 minutes. I'll set the timer, and now the kid wants to do it, and they want to show you that they can do it really well and really fast. Can you do all of them with no mistakes in 5 minutes? Or we did 10 minutes last time, let's do 9 minutes this time and see if you can get them a little faster. We learn about 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 30% of things we see. We learn 50% of what we hear and see, 70% of the things we've discussed, 80% of things we've actually experienced, and 95% of what we teach to others. If your child reads something, you can expect them to learn about 10% of it. But if they read it and discuss it with you, they're going to retain 70%. And if you read it and discuss it and then they explain it back to you, they will retain 95%. This is because it uses different parts of the brain as we do those things. Everybody learns differently. Some people learn better with visual cues. Some people learn better with activity. So we're going to do that next. Remember the 75% rule. 75% of what you as a parent or a teacher or an aide, 75% of what you do is giving back encouragement and positive feedback. You can say, "Good job! You can do this." Give them praise. "I believe in you. I knew you would." Positive things. By doing that, you're becoming the cheerleader. You're no longer the person with the stick gonna get after them if they didn't do something well or perfectly. I don't want people to look at me and expect me to do something perfectly. Kids can smell a phony a mile away. Be real with your praise. Instead of saying, "You're the greatest reader on the planet," try saying, "Hey, that was much better. I can tell you really worked hard on that. Good effort." Because a genuine compliment, genuine encouragement goes a lot farther than just making something up. You cannot, as a parent, control what goes on in the classroom. Teachers have trouble controlling what goes on in the classroom. There's too many variables. But you can control how you and your child work together. This can be a positive experience. It can be a learning experience for both of you. We're going to take a look next at learning styles. There are a variety of learning styles. Some material will list 7 or 8, but they're basically in 3 categories. When you first started learning as an infant, you began to receive information. You were seeing things, you were hearing things. And eventually, you began to express that information. You were listening to the sound of your mother's voice. You were listening to music. You were listening to siblings. As you grew up and got a little older, you started making sounds, and people would respond to those sounds. And you began to speak because you found that certain sounds elicited a response. You would also, when you got to school, you learned to read. And as you learned to read, you found that you could have ideas that you could put down so that other people could read. We call this thinking. How can I help my child find the way that they learn best? You can see from the slide, it says V plus A plus K plus T. 4 ways to learn anything new. V is for visual, A is for auditory, K is for kinesthetic, and T is for tactile. For most of this, I'm just going to call it all kinesthetic, but there is a slight difference for tactile. When we see it, it's visual. When we hear it or we tell it, it's auditory. When we do it, it's kinesthetic or tactile. And all of those things added together make us remember it. Now, teachers tend to teach in their own learning style. It worked for them, they figure it'll work for their students too. You can use strategies that are designed for your students' learning style and keep those in mind. Visual learners. A visual learner can recall words after only seeing them a few times. You can give them a spelling list, have them look at it a few times, and they can learn to spell those words. They prefer to have instructions that are written. They can concentrate on visual tasks despite the presence of visual distractions. They can focus very carefully on what they're doing. A visual learner remembers and understands words accompanied by pictures and graphs. Illustrations are very important to a visual learner. A visual learner can discriminate between letters that look alike, like an M and an N, or words that look alike, like full and fill. They very quickly see the difference and make that adjustment mentally. The visual learner does not confuse the order of letters, like stop and spot have the same letters in them, but the visual learner right away sees it in the order for that word. The auditory learner recalls words after only hearing them a few times. They prefer to have oral instruction. They're able to concentrate on listening despite auditory distractions. They use appropriate vocabulary and sentence structure. They learn their grammar because they can hear it right away when it's not done right. They can discriminate between letters that sound alike, like D and T, and words that sound alike, like cat and cot. Blended sounds they can work with. They can rapidly form words by putting sounds together. Phonetics is a good way for an auditory learner to learn. They can retain a storyline while they're sounding out the words. That's one of the problems that some students have when they're reading. It's not that they can't read, but when they come to words they don't know, they work so hard at figuring out what the word is, they've lost track of what the story is about. But the auditory learner gets along with that better. Next, we have the kinesthetic learner. The kinesthetic learner can recall words after writing them a few times. They can smoothly and rhythmically and freely move. They recall words from signs that they've seen on the trip. When they're out in the car, they're reading what's going on, and they remember because they're moving. They can recall words more easily if they're walking around or moving. So in the classroom or at home, if you've got a kid that's constantly fidgeting, they're probably a kinesthetic learner. And they can remember better if they're moving. They remember the feelings of the story better than the detail. Did you catch that? They remember the feel of the story better than the details in the story. The tactile learner, the kinesthetic learner is a whole body movement, large motor. Tactile is more what your fingers are doing in your hands. They can recall words after tapping them as they spell them, or when they're typing because their fingers are doing the work. Keyboarding is very important for a tactile learner. They excel at crafts like sewing and making models. They're just good with their hands. They can hold a pen or a pencil correctly, and they write legibly and proportionately because they're spatially oriented. They recall words after touching an object that word represents or using them in a game. Think about your own child. Discuss the results after they've read something or learned something. What is your child like? What are you like? What methods do schools use most? When a child is having difficulty learning, we need to focus on the method, not the child. Ask, why isn't this material reaching my child? Instead of, why isn't my child getting it? Why isn't the method working? Let's change the method. Not, what's wrong with my kid? He's not getting this. When we send children to school, we expect them to get all A's. We expect them to be good at everything. And is this fair? Do we expect this as adults? The truth is, everyone is gifted at some things, and everyone has a learning disability in some things. Next, we're going to talk about intelligence versus common sense. I hope you'll tune in.